I'm Louie, and this is what I'm looking to learn in 2025 as a software engineer. As we all know, in software, the learning is never ever over. Whether it be due to new technologies from a company, new methodologies, or just something new just introduced by AI in general, we're always left learning or trying to find out what's most relevant and where best to apply ourselves. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about myself and what I'm learning to try and keep up with modern trends and what I think is important in the industry at the moment. And I guess one thing to note is I'm not strictly a software engineer. I'm deemed a cloud engineer for the company I work for. But the area which I mainly work in is DevOps, or kind of like CI/CD area, and managing cloud infrastructure. So not necessarily like the scripts which run within the cloud, but how the infrastructure is deployed and maintained from within the cloud, if that makes sense. So some of my goals as such will be reflected based on like the area which I work in as a software cloud engineer, DevOps engineer. So yeah, let's dive straight in and talk about the first thing I'm learning. So the first thing on my list that I'm learning or was learning is Terraform. If you don't know what Terraform is an infrastructure provisioning tool. So if you're familiar with AWS, it's similar to CloudFormation, except for the main difference is it's like provider agnostic or cloud agnostic. So you can deploy to Azure, AWS, or even something like Jira or Confluence completely through the same code base, just by defining different providers, which is super duper useful. This one is a little bit of a retrospective one though, since I was studying for this since last year, like September 2024, and I studied up until around January, and that's when I took the exam. And then thankfully I did actually pass the exam. In terms of the resources that I used to pass and prepare for the exam, the first one is of course the Terraform docs. The Terraform docs are great, they're quite comprehensive and they're easy to use. It uses like a modern UI. And you'll find like a lot of docs, especially Python ones, don't use a modern UI. So the fact that it does use a modern UI is really, really useful. And I appreciate HashiCorp for doing that. And the second resource I used was the free code camp video on YouTube. I found it to be really useful and concise, and it was considerably shorter than the other exams content preparation material videos that were available. One note that I would say about this one is that I would recommend going on the link that's in the description below for the video, the Exam Pro link, because the actual YouTube video is missing some of the content. Like it won't make sense as you go in order. So go onto the link. And it's pretty good as well, because I think it comes with like 5 or 3 practice exams. And yeah, that's all I did to pass the exam for the Terraform Associate certificate. It was not too much of a difficult one, and it definitely helped that I had like approximately 2 years of experience prior to taking the exam. But yeah, this is a great one to pick up, and I think it's really useful and relevant in the cloud DevOps industry today. So I guess the second thing on my list is GitHub Actions in particular. So especially after learning Terraform, this one's quite applicable. So if you're unfamiliar with what GitHub Actions is like the CI/CD tool that's available within GitHub. And GitHub is a version control system, which I personally use, and at work, I also use it as well. So this is very applicable to me. And I think in general, it's applicable. I think GitHub probably is one of, if not the most popular version control system. So learning kind of the tools that surround it as well is super duper useful. And if you're not really aware of the tool or what GitHub Actions is as a tool, it's a CI/CD integration tool. So CI/CD is continuous integration and continuous deployment or delivery, which essentially means whatever code you have, whenever you push it to the repository, if it's like matching the criteria you class as something that you would push, it will then move that from your repository to whichever live service you're using. So this could be you've defined an S3 bucket in your code, you've pushed that to GitHub, and if it matches the criteria, so you may have merged it into main or something, it will then deploy that into a given AWS environment and make the S3 bucket live, or whatever changes you made to that code. So if that kind of makes sense, that's a pretty useful tool, especially after learning Terraform. So in order to measure my success for this criteria or for this topic or area, I wanted to pass the GitHub Actions exam, which is an exam made available by Microsoft I actually haven't passed this one, so this one isn't retrospective. I'm still studying for it. I actually have the exam scheduled for myself on Thursday next week. And kind of how I'm preparing for this exam is I had a course on Udemy, which I followed. I went through and completed the course. I also found some practice exams separately on Udemy. And then another website which I found to be really useful was the GitHub certified website, I believe it's called. I'll leave a link somewhere there. And that was really, really useful. That has a lot of questions as well, and just going through. But I also think they ask a lot of questions based on general knowledge surrounding CI/CD and kind of expected practices. So it's very important to not just go into this exam practicing exam content, but also have some real life experience and try and use GitHub Actions and GitHub so you have an understanding. My measure of success here is passing the exam, and I guess I'll find out next week if I pass the exam. So yeah, let's move on to the third topic that I'm learning. So the third thing on my list that I'm learning, and this one's a little bit more random, it's a little bit of a wild card, but there still is some context to why it's important, is Go or Golang. Go is kind of a scripting language, but also it has been used to write some other kind of big framework and bits of tech. Most importantly for me, that probably is Terraform. And another functionality of it is that you can write standardized Terraform tests using Go. So this was kind of a request from my manager to learn Go. And myself, I don't really have too much of a motivation besides I'm learning another programming language. It's pretty fun. So yeah, the third on the list is Go. And in terms of measures of success here, this is a little bit more random since I don't really think there would be like a particularly useful examination. So instead, I'm going to set myself a goal of potentially writing 2 small projects in Go. And then within work, potentially, if I get the opportunity, use TerraTest to write some tests in Go for existing infrastructure that we have in place. And pretty much just apply myself if the opportunity rises. But for this one, the measure of success is not too strict. And yeah, I just want to see where it goes with this one. So let's move on to the fourth thing that I'm planning on learning this year. The fourth thing on the list is actually the AWS DevOps Engineer. Let me double check that one. It's actually called the AWS Certified DevOps Engineer Professional Certification, which builds upon the certificate I already have, the AWS Solutions Architect Associate Certificate, which is a level below. So by studying for this exam, I'm building upon knowledge which I already have. So I think it's really important, especially in software, that you don't always continuously try and learn new skills. That's very important, but it's also to build upon the skills you already have so you can kind of reach a level of mastery. I don't think doing this certificate by itself would help you reach mastery, but it definitely would help you become more proficient, especially in the subject. And then maybe once taking this exam, you can take another one on the same level, or I don't know if there's a higher level, but yeah, you can continue progressing, and it's definitely not going to hinder your knowledge within AWS, especially if you, whilst preparing for the exam, you do the like labs. If the course you're following has labs, you do the labs as well. So then you get like hands-on practice as well. Kind of in terms of what this covers, this exam, it covers like software development, lifecycle automation, configuration management, resilient cloud solutions, monitoring and logging, incident and event response, and security compliance. So this, as a DevOps engineer, I mean, it's in the name as well, is super useful. It's a really big one, so I don't plan on taking the exam for quite a while. Maybe at the end of the year or in November time, I might schedule the exam for them. But for now, I need to continue using my knowledge within my day-to-day work, practicing, doing more exams, and also just trying to keep myself open to kind of difficult challenges within AWS, because I find that you tend to find out new things when working on problems which you don't know the answer to, even if the thing you learn isn't directly related to the problem that you're trying to solve. If it's a really niche or weird problem you haven't worked on before, you'll probably access a different area of AWS or a different area of whatever technology you're using, and within that different area you'll find out new things, which is always pretty useful. So yeah, the AWS, if I check the name again, the AWS Certified DevOps Engineer Professional Certificate is my fourth thing on the list. So yeah, let's move on to the fifth thing. So the fifth thing on my list is something which I think a lot of professionals in tech tend to forget, especially myself, and that's soft skills / presentation skills. I know for me that whenever I had a review with my manager, or I spoke with colleagues, or I spoke with friends, I'd always speak about new hard tech skills of learning, whether it be like Terraform, Go, GitHub Actions, and I'd always kind of leave off soft skills. And I believe this is one of maybe the most underrated skill within tech, since you usually work in large teams, or your teams are smaller, but there's lots of teams which you have to communicate with, and there's product owners which may not have the hard skills, or there's managers elsewhere, and you're going to need to communicate with these in order to deliver your ideas. And without good, presentation or leadership skills or soft skills, you're not going to be able to successfully communicate your ideas well. So even if you had a great idea for a product, you're going to find it difficult to actually sell your way of building the product to whoever is responsible for the delivery of the product. So I think soft skills is a really important skill for me. And in terms of how I plan on improving myself in this area, I have actually completed 1 or 2 courses. One was in leadership, one was in, I think it was presentation. But I don't think these 2 were particularly useful since they weren't quite hands-on. So I would rather focus in for this one, not exactly how I would do it, but kind of the metrics and the end goal. So the kind of the goals I've set for myself is I want to more frequently, so maybe within work or through this YouTube channel, demo 2 to 3 times a month some technology. And I guess the second one, which is more obvious, is this YouTube channel. I would like to kind of improve my ability to speak and deliver my ideas. And this YouTube channel, I think, is a great opportunity to do this. I hope that so this would be my second video. So comparing my very first video to this video, and then to my 10th, 20th, 30th, I'd like to see like a positive correlation between the number of videos I've released and like the confidence, my ability to kind of deliver the ideas, and the way that I convey my face, emotions, expression, and my tone of voice is better. So yes, that's the 5th thing on my list. So the 6th thing on my list is actually AI and how I can integrate AI into my workflow. This is super duper duper important, I think, at least, because the landscape of software development and just software in general is changing so rapidly, especially with many large tech firms quickly adopting or roughly adopting AI and the tools which come around AI. So with this one, there's not really like any goals that I have in particular around it. For me, it's just to keep an open mind. So kind of from my perspective, actions I can take with this open mind is to be aware of what tools are available, what they're capable of, how good they are, how to use them, and then when and where to use them based on their ability. That's kind of what I have been doing so far since January. It can be kind of scary seeing how good some of the tools are, especially if you're a new developer. But I've seen some of even the really, really good models struggle with some not so difficult problems, and all of them have their shortcomings so far. I'm not saying in the future they won't, but right now they still do, which makes me a little bit happy. I think this is kind of a big goal for me to overcome, since for the longest time, or since like 2022, 2023, whenever ChatGPT came out, I've been very actively anti-AI. Whenever I met with a friend, I'd be like, oh, have you seen the new AI thing? Humanity's over. So I think it's good that I'm adopting and changing my mindset, especially as the industry is changing now, and just trying to stay up to date with the latest tech. So yeah, I've just gone through the 6 things I want to learn, or kind of areas I want to dive into, or changes, or self-improvement, whatever you want to define it as. Hopefully it's been useful if you want to get into DevOps or software engineering or cloud engineering in general, and just wanted to know some like topics you could learn, then I hope this has been useful for you. If you liked the video or found it useful, please like and subscribe. I only have like 26 subscribers, but 3 of those are my own personal accounts, and I'm very grateful for the other 23, but it'd be nice to have more. I don't want to be greedy, but a little bit more could be nice. And yeah, for those who watched, I hope you enjoyed, and have a fantastic evening, morning, whatever time of day it is for you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.